When reality turns into a battlefield, even a child's imagination can become a place to hide. But sometimes, the doorway to that world opens when no one is watching.
Ophelia puts the small stone she found into the statue's right eye. Suddenly, a stick insect crawls out of its mouth. The move startles her, making her step back. The stick insect seems to have something to say, but her pregnant mother suddenly interrupts the encounter. Since they have to reach her stepfather's military camp on time, Ophelia has no choice but to follow her mother and leave by car. But no one notices that the stick insect quietly follows behind. Year 1944, the late stage of World War II. In parts of Spain, the shadow of fascist dictatorship still looms. Ophelia's stepfather is a military officer hunting down the guerrillas. He's stationed deep in the mountains, directing the battle. He enjoys using brutal methods to crush his enemies. His only pleasure is studying torture instruments to torment and mutilate captured rebels. At that time, Ophelia was still an ordinary girl. Her mother endured the pain of late pregnancy and brought her to live in the camp, all because her stepfather insisted that his own son be born by his side. So he ordered that the mother use a wheelchair even when walking. She had to stay in bed every day for strict rest. The doctor prescribed a bottle of sedative for her. Just 2 drops would bring a peaceful sleep. When her mother fell asleep, Ophelia suddenly noticed the stick insect from earlier had followed into her room, as if they shared a mysterious bond. Ophelia believed it was a forest spirit. Then, the insect began to transform. It turned into a fairy, just like in her storybook. The fairy pointed toward the door. Ophelia, driven by impulse, followed it into the labyrinth in the courtyard. Deep inside the maze, it suddenly opened up. At the center was a deep, spiral well leading downward. She followed the stone steps down to the bottom. Ophelia encounters a creature with curling goat horns. Its face looks frightening and inhuman, but seeing fairies fluttering around it, Ophelia doesn't seem too afraid. The creature calls itself the legendary faun, Pan. He says he remained in the mortal world waiting for Ophelia's arrival because she is the princess of the underground kingdom. Long ago, she secretly escaped to the human world. The sunlight made her forget who she was. Fortunately, the lonely king left an entrance here, waiting for his daughter to return home. At first, Ophelia doesn't believe him at all, but Pan tells her to look at her shoulder. A true princess bears a faint crescent-shaped birthmark, but Pan continues, saying, to return to the underground kingdom, the princess must first complete 3 tasks to prove she hasn't lost her true essence. He then gives her a blank magic book and 3 enchanted stones. The tasks will reveal themselves in due time. Before Ophelia can ask further, Pan vanishes silently into the dark. Back in her room, Ophelia has no interest even in her new dress. Her mind is filled with Pan's words. While bathing, she secretly opens the blank book. Suddenly, black words appear on the pages. Touching the birthmark on her shoulder again, she finally believes she truly is the princess. The next day, she tells the housekeeper about it. Ophelia's heart is filled with pride, but the housekeeper gently says to her, in fairy tales, Pan is not exactly a good man. Before she can finish, the captain calls her away. A new batch of supplies has just arrived at the warehouse. The captain takes the key to manage it personally. Then he notices smoke rising from the forest. He immediately leads his troops there. But on site, aside from the remains of a campfire, they found no sign of anyone. However, the captain found an intact bottle of antibiotics. He held the bottle, sinking into deep thought. Meanwhile, Ophelia was clutching the book, running toward the forest. The book says the first task is to find a withered fig tree. A giant toad lives among its roots. If she stuffs the magic stones into the toad's belly, she can get the golden key from its stomach. To avoid dirtying her new dress, Ophelia takes it off and hangs it on a branch. Then she crawls into the tree hollow. Inside, it's damp and dark. Slimy grubs creep all over the walls. It gives her goosebumps, but thinking of her identity as a princess, she grits her teeth and keeps crawling in. At the deepest part of the hollow lies a toad, just as expected. So fat it looks like an overinflated ball. Ophelia musters her courage and declares herself a princess. But the toad only lets out a croak. So loud it's deafening. Ophelia is a bit flustered, but she notices the toad is a glutton. It drools, staring at the grubs in her hand. So she quickly mixes the magic stones with the grubs. The toad flicks out its tongue and swallows them in one gulp. Within seconds, it starts convulsing. Then it vomits out its entire stomach sac. Ophelia, fighting her nausea, rummages through it. And indeed, she feels a gleaming golden key. When she climbs out of the hollow, night has already fallen. The new dress on the branch has been blown into a muddy pit. Her mother sees it and shakes with anger. She punishes Ophelia by denying her dinner. But Ophelia isn't the least bit upset. She even feels a little proud. Once she completes all 3 tasks, She'll become a princess. Not long after, the fairy flies to Ophelia's side. It leads her once again to the labyrinth, where Pan awaits. Pan is delighted to see that Ophelia has obtained the golden key. He hands her a white piece of chalk. He says she'll need it for the next task. If she completes the remaining 2 tasks before the full moon, the little girl can return to the underground kingdom as a princess. But when Ophelia returns home and opens the book again, the pages remain blank. Instead, they are stained with spreading red. Her heart tightens in fear. She rushes to her mother's room. Her mother's face is as pale as paper. The sheets beneath her are soaked in blood. She hurriedly calls for her stepfather. After examining her, the doctor says her mother needs complete rest. So from then on, Ophelia has to sleep alone. At night, when she's alone with the housekeeper, Ophelia confesses that she knows her secret. It turns out the housekeeper and the doctor are secretly helping the rebels, but the little girl promises not to tell her stepfather, because she doesn't want the housekeeper to be harmed. The housekeeper is moved by her kindness. She sits by the bed and sings her a lullaby. She doesn't leave until Ophelia falls asleep. Late that night, the housekeeper and the doctor go up the mountain. They meet with the gorillas hiding there. The doctor helps them perform surgery on a wounded man. Meanwhile, the housekeeper hands over the warehouse key to her younger brother among the rebels. At midnight, Pan suddenly appears in Ophelia's room. Seeing that she hasn't done the second task, his face darkens immediately. Ophelia explains that she was delayed because her mother is ill. Pan takes out a mandrake root shaped like a baby from his robe. He tells her to soak it in fresh milk and place it under her mother's bed. It will soon make her mother's condition better. Then Pan solemnly warns her. The second task is very dangerous, he says. You must not eat anything inside, or there will be terrible consequences. Ophelia nods in agreement. When she opens the blank book again, the instructions for the task finally appear. She must draw a small door on the wall with the chalk. She must go in and retrieve a dagger, and return before the sand in the hourglass runs out. To her surprise, the chalk door actually opens. Inside, it seems to lead to a pitch-dark underground palace. Ophelia turns the hourglass upside down to start the timer. She takes a deep breath and steps inside. After just a few steps, the space opens wide before her eyes. In the center of the hall stands a large mahogany table. It's piled with strawberry tarts and chocolate cakes, and clusters of glistening grapes. Ophelia hasn't eaten since morning. Her stomach growls with hunger. But beside the table sits a pale, monstrous figure. It sits motionless, like a statue. Ophelia doesn't dare move a muscle. She turns to look at the murals on the wall. They depict the daily life of the pale man. The sight sends a chill down her spine. On the floor lie piles of little shoes. They seem to prove that the creature really eats children. Ophelia quickly opens the box Pan gave her. Tiny fairies fly out from inside. They lead her to 3 cabinet doors. From left to right, wooden, golden, and silver doors. The fairies tell Ophelia to open the golden one. But, having read many fairy tales, she shakes her head. Instead, she inserts the key into the wooden door. This is like the tale of the golden and silver axes. Behind the wooden door, the girl finds a sharp dagger. She didn't expect the task to be so easy. The little fairies urge Ophelia to leave quickly, but the grapes on the table seem to have a magical pull. Ophelia forgets Pan's warning and ignores the fairies trying to stop her. She picks one and pops it into her mouth. It's so sweet she closes her eyes in delight. Just then, the monster behind her starts to move. It slowly places the eyes from the plate into its palms. It twists them, as if adjusting the focus. And the next second, it locks onto Ophelia. The pale man stands and walks toward her, but the fairies intercept it midway. The pale man, annoyed, waves his hands violently. His wrinkled skin flaps as he moves. He grabs a fairy and stuffs it into his mouth. Ophelia turns and sees it happen. Terrified, she loses all composure. She runs for her life in panic. The pale man, using his eyes and his palms, tracks her. He continues his slow but relentless pursuit. But because of the delay, the sand in the hourglass has run out. The exit door slams shut. The wall returns to its original state. No matter how she cries or pushes, it won't open. She quickly takes out the chalk to draw another door. But the chalk snaps in two. The monster draws closer and closer. It raises its palms and looks toward her. Ophelia, desperate, is on the verge of tears. Suddenly, she remembers Pan's words that the chalk can draw any door. She hurriedly draws a small door on the ceiling. Luckily, the chalk doesn't fail her this time. The door opens a crack. She grabs onto the ceiling and climbs up with all her strength. Just before the monster's hand touches her dress, she finally climbs back into her own room. But inside the box of fairies, 2 are dead, only 1 remains. Ophelia doesn't have time to grieve. She puts the mandrake root into the milk and, Just as Pan said, something magical happens. Her mother seems to form a strange connection with the mandrake. Not only does her fever subside, but she also seems much more at ease. Following Pan's instructions, she places the mandrake under the bed and prays for her mother's recovery. Just then, the doctor and the captain enter the room. The doctor looks puzzled. The woman who was in critical condition just yesterday is suddenly much better today. But the captain doesn't seem to care. He pulls the doctor aside and whispers, "If the lady has trouble giving birth, save the baby, not the mother." Unbeknownst to him, Ophelia hears this from under the bed. She clenches her fists tightly. Her worry for her mother deepens. A few days later, something big happens at the camp. A supply train several kilometers away is blown up by the rebels. But strangely, the rebels take nothing. The captain senses that something is off. As he's thinking it over, an explosion goes off behind him. Thick smoke rises from the direction of the camp. They've fallen into a diversion trap. By the time he and his men rush back, the warehouse has already been emptied. The captain examines the lock on the door. He realizes it was opened with a key. His heart sinks. He begins to suspect there's a traitor among them. Because the rebels retreated hastily, one small group is discovered. The captain leads his men to pursue them. After a brief gunfight, most of the rebels are wiped out. Only one stuttering boy survives. The captain locks the prisoner up, preparing to torture him for answers. The housekeeper watches, breaking into a cold sweat. She knows all too well how cruel the captain can be. She secretly hides a small knife in her apron, just in case she needs it. That night, the camp is filled with endless screams. No one knows if the stuttering boy can endure it. Pan appears in Ophelia's room once again. When he hears she disobeyed his warning and ate food from the Pale Man's banquet, he becomes furious. He scolds Ophelia for failing her mission and declares she'll never return to the underground kingdom. After speaking, Pan slowly fades into the darkness, as if he will never return. At dawn, the captain orders the doctor to treat the prisoner. He's afraid the man will die before talking. The doctor looks at the prisoner's disfigured face. He struggles internally with what to do, but he doesn't dare say a word. But during the treatment, the captain finds a vial of antibiotics in the doctor's kit. He takes it back to his room to compare. It's identical to the one found in the forest. The identity of the traitor is now obvious. The stuttering boy pleads with the doctor to kill him. "Death is the only way to end this," he says weakly. The doctor knows he'll be exposed, but he does it anyway. The captain's eyes turn icy cold. He's about to pull his gun and drag out the traitor. Suddenly, he hears a noise from his wife's room. He rushes over to check. It's Ophelia tending to something under the bed. She's changing the milk for the mandrake root. The little girl whispers softly to the root. Her stepfather grabs her and drags her out from under the bed. The captain spots the strange root. His face contorts with rage. He thinks Ophelia is performing some kind of witchcraft or curse. He raises his hand, ready to strike her. Luckily, her mother wakes up just in time to stop him. But her mother also doesn't believe the root can heal. She thinks Ophelia is just being foolish. She throws the mandrake root straight into the fire. She scolds Ophelia loudly, saying fairy tales are nothing but lies. But as the root lets out a childlike scream of pain, her mother suddenly clutches her stomach in agony. Ophelia frantically calls for help, but the captain has already returned to the interrogation room. He sees that the prisoner has stopped breathing. He demands to know why the doctor did it. The doctor replies, "Because I don't want to become like you." The captain is enraged. He shoots the doctor dead, but before he can even catch his breath, someone rushes in shouting, "The lady is in labor!" But the doctor is already dead. The captain can only call the housekeeper to deliver the baby. The delivery is excruciating and horrifying. In the end, the baby is born a boy, but Ophelia's mother takes her last breath. The stepfather now has a son, but Ophelia has lost her only family. After the funeral, the captain keeps his son in his own room. He tells the housekeeper to care for him. Once the baby falls asleep, the captain suddenly stops the housekeeper from leaving. He tells her the prisoner confessed everything. There's a traitor in the camp. The housekeeper's heart sinks. She realizes she may have been exposed. She makes an excuse to leave. But in truth, she plans to pack up and escape. Before leaving, she goes to say goodbye to Ophelia. Ophelia cries and begs her to take her along. The housekeeper's heart softens. She takes Ophelia and runs toward the forest. But they don't get far. They are caught by the captain. The captain never expected Ophelia to be part of the traitor's escape. He locks the girl in her own room. Then he goes to the interrogation room where the housekeeper is held. He orders everyone else to leave. He wants to interrogate her personally. He looks at the torture tools on the table. A sinister smile creeps onto his face, but he doesn't notice. The housekeeper quietly pulls out the small knife hidden in her apron. She cuts through the rope binding her wrists, while the captain is lost in his cruel thoughts. She stabs him in the back. Before he can react, she drives another knife into his chest. The captain opens his mouth to scream, but the housekeeper shoves the knife into his mouth, and with one brutal slash, she uses the chaos to escape the room. The housekeeper runs deep into the mountains, but not long after, the captain, his face covered in blood, staggers after her. He roars, ordering his men to capture her. The housekeeper runs uphill with all her strength, but the horsemen behind her are closing in. Soon, they surround her in a small clearing. The housekeeper stares at the approaching soldiers. She pulls out the knife and points it at her own throat. She would rather die than fall into the captain's hands again. Just then, gunshots echo through the forest. The captain's soldiers drop one by one. The housekeeper looks up. It's her brother, leading the rebels to rescue her. They arrive just in time to save her life. Meanwhile, locked in her room, Ophelia, as she sits helplessly on the floor, lost in thought, Pan suddenly appears once more. He tells her he'll give her one last chance. She must bring her stepfather's baby to the labyrinth. He forbids her from asking why. Ophelia hesitates for a moment. Then she uses the magic chalk to sneak into the captain's room. At that moment, the captain is tending to his wounds. She picks up the sleeping baby and runs. But she's spotted by the captain. Ignoring the wound on his face, he chases Ophelia outside the house. Only then does he realize the camp has been overrun by the rebels. But the captain only has eyes for his son. He chases Ophelia all the way into the labyrinth. Deep inside, Pan is already waiting for her. The final task, he says, is very simple. She must cut the baby's skin with a dagger. His blood will open the gate to the underground kingdom. Then Ophelia can return as a princess. But such a cruel thing, Ophelia's kind heart could never allow her to do it. In the end, she refuses to complete the task. Pan grows furious, about to lash out. Just then, the captain arrives at the heart of the labyrinth. With mortal eyes, he cannot see Pan. He only sees Ophelia holding the baby. He thinks she's trying to harm his son. The captain rushes forward and takes the baby. Without hesitation, he shoots Ophelia. Ophelia collapses to the ground. Her blood flows down the steps into the deep well. The captain walks out of the labyrinth holding the baby. Outside, the rebels have surrounded him. Knowing he's doomed, he hands the baby to the housekeeper. Before he can utter a word, he's shot dead. Later, the housekeeper finds Ophelia. She lies motionless in a pool of blood. The housekeeper kneels, placing the baby beside her, and softly sings the same lullaby as before. Tears stream uncontrollably down the housekeeper's face. But she doesn't see. After Ophelia's blood flows into the deep well, the well suddenly begins to glow with light. Ophelia's soul descends into the underground kingdom. Her worn dress transforms into a magnificent royal gown. All her wounds vanish without a trace. Her father on the throne praises her kindness. She never sacrificed others for her own sake. That is the true virtue of a princess. She has completed the real task. On the throne beside him, her mother smiles and waves at her, looking healthy and radiant again. The fairies and Pan in the grand hall, along with countless citizens of the underground kingdom, welcome their princess home. Meanwhile, the housekeeper still weeps in the labyrinth. If this were a beautiful fairy tale, Ophelia's body is already gone, but her soul has returned to her true home. There, all the people love and honor her, and she will never again know loneliness or pain.